With the continuation of cinematic universes based on comics, cameos have become an increasingly used tool by the creative teams behind these franchises. An appropriately used tool since the source material is so often full of cameo appearances of characters within each other's stories. Cameos offer the same benefits that it does for other mediums like comics and animation. It can establish, strengthen, and expand the connection of separate projects that coexist within the same continuity, or just the continuity as a whole. The main two subjects of this video will unsurprisingly be Marvel and DC live action projects, since they have had the biggest attempts at trying to adapt the scale of their source material. One of the tools they often use to do this is cameos. In this video, I'll be discussing the history of cameos in these projects, the obstacles they face, the forms they come in, and why they are a useful tool. Cameos are a form of crossover in a way, at least when done between two established projects. Sometimes the cameo can come from a character who isn't established in live action, or this live action continuity. Those are more of a cameo referencing the comics and not another live action project, though they still offer the same effect of expanding the project's world by being inclusive of other properties from the source material, with the potential of the role being expanded on in the future, setting a foundation for the creative team to build upon in the future. When using a cameo, there is an overall reliance on the audience's familiarity with the source material, other projects, and the character in general, especially if the cameo is used to introduce a character. There's reliance mainly because the character has such a limited time on screen. It's best not to harm the pacing of the story with too much exposition in such a short amount of time, mainly referring to the background of the character that may be similar to the comics. Since these are adaptations of a medium full of such distinct and stylized looks and designs, it can be fairly easy to recognize a character in a cameo just based on appearance, though that does have a heavier reliance on the audience being familiar with all of this, at times possibly being overly reliant on it. Overly relying on this familiarity can linger on the line of not giving the character enough substance in their cameo. The narrative and cameos should offer a sufficient and relevant amount of information on the character. That is, however, dependent on the scale of the cameo. Background cameos, where the character's appearance is mainly just used as background, can be without substance. They're used to illustrate that this world is full of these various characters and the concepts and projects associated with them. This nearly happened in 2002's Spider-Man. The early age of comic book movies were implicitly isolated from each other, existing and expanding within their own much more secluded franchises. Marvel was forced into this due to issues with the film rights of their characters and properties, owned by various studios who refused to collaborate in a connected franchise that would match the scale and possibly success of the comics. Eventually, Marvel Studios would do this themselves with the characters and properties they had access to. With the dawn of Marvel movies in the early 2000s, came a desire for these projects to exist along one another in a cinematic universe. That was sadly never accomplished, but there was nearly a cameo that would link at least Sony's Spider-Man franchise with Fox's X-Men franchise.
That's a cute outfit. Did your husband give it to you?
Hugh Jackman and then Marvel producer Kevin Feige attempted to have Jackman's Wolverine cameo in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. The role didn't seem to have been much possibly a simple appearance and not much to do with the actual narrative. I personally would have liked to see Logan as one of the many stylized Raimi extras. Jackman was meant to appear in full costume, but they were unable to gain access to the suit. This led to the higher-ups reminding Jackman about the reality of the licensing and rights issue. Neither studio willing to compromise about the benefits and profits from owning these characters. Both Jackman and Feige seemed eager to use the cameo as a way to communicate with the fans that these movies, like the comics, have stories and characters that are all existing in this vast world. A message that Feige would tease in the end credit scene of 2008's Iron Man. Even though there were no plans to further cross over these franchises in any major way, the creative teams behind these projects would have had the creative freedom and potential to tell a story that would include something as simple as a cameo appearance, better adapting the imaginative interconnectivity of the comics. This division of properties across multiple studios continues to be an issue for Marvel. Even in the aftermath of Disney buying Fox and Marvel regaining the film rights to several major characters and properties, they still have to find suitable ways of introducing these characters into their Marvel Cinematic Universe. One effective way that the MCU has begun to incorporate characters previously outside of their universe or vaguely inside of their universe has been through cameos, slowly easing the characters into the continuity that is now encompassing an entire multiverse. Some cameos have been used to fold in pre-existing projects by having the actor return in the role. Some has had the actor back in the role, but within a different continuity. And some has been a new actor in the role in a new continuity. The methods have been inconsistent, but it's understandable for the MCU to test which way works best for their franchise, since they're trying to incorporate so much foundational elements in a continuity they've already built. The cameos have been a way to tease and ease any concerns about the future of these characters. Fox's X-Men franchise did eventually include cameos of pre-existing characters in other projects to attempt to strengthen their universe, but it would just harm the continuity until their inevitable end. Sony uses cameos in their modern projects to try and illustrate that they have a cinematic universe, but it hasn't had much of an appeal, now just complicating the MCU's continuity as well. DC has had more of a self-inflicted restriction against crossing over their live-action projects, though there was an attempt early on to do so. (1984's Supergirl), a movie I ignorantly forgot to include in my Iron Man, Man of Steel, and the Foundation of a Franchise video. The film is technically DC's first attempt at developing a franchise across multiple titles. Supergirl is in the continuity of the Christopher Reeve and Brandon Routh Superman film series. This connected is expressed through references made to the existence of Reeve's Superman in the film. Originally, however, this was meant to be done through an in-person cameo by Reeve, a commitment he ended up not fulfilling after suffering a loss of confidence in the franchise as a whole. Reeve's cameo wouldn't have saved the film, but it could have served as a stronger connection between the projects, possibly offering greater confidence to DC in regards to pursuing a more elaborate film franchise of their projects, and a reason for audiences to be excited about the possibility of a larger film franchise. from DC. Major explicit cameos offer a strong thread between projects and everything within them. Having the previously established actor return to the role for a cameo is highly preferred, even in the case of the cameos simply being used to remind the audience of a project existing within a connected cinematic universe. Though it's not always an option, it's an obstacle that creative teams have found ways around. The faceless cameo is when a character appears as a cameo but the actor doesn't. This has particularly been used by DC and particularly with Superman. In the case of a faceless cameo, the character is presumed to be the same actor without the actor actually physically being present, but seemingly it's all still within the same continuity as the other projects featuring the actor in the role, preferring not to actually recast the character for a single appearance. In the case of 2019's Shazam, this was done due to scheduling issues. Henry Cavill couldn't appear in the film due to prior engagements, but the creative team still wanted to include a Superman cameo. Their solution was to feature a faceless cameo of the character. Since it was this level of cameo, the creative team were able to feature the character, reference the greater universe, without distracting from the main focus of the scene. If Cavill were to be the one in the role, then that would have demanded more attention be given to Superman that could have potentially thrown the scene out of balance. With this cameo, they were able to draw from the DCEU with a pivotal inclusion that still honors the character. The faceless cameo can be seen as disingenuous, especially when done with Cavill's Superman. It is preferred that the actor appear in the role for a number of reasons. As I've said, it definitely offers a stronger connection between movies, and it delivers an interesting interaction between actors as characters who may have a history in the source material. The creative team were met with the obstacle of Cavill being too busy, so they found a way that they could still get a cameo from the character, even if it wasn't from the same actor. I believe that due to the chaotic nature of the movie business, the faceless cameo should be an option if the actor isn't available and the creative team still needs the physical presence of the character. It's on a similar level to the background cameo and can be delivered in a similar way as well. Both have a varying level of the character's inclusion in the project, but it all can still have the same benefits if used properly. If used improperly, it can lead to confusion. If a person who strongly looks like Wolverine did appear in the background of Spider-Man, but if it wasn't actually Hugh Jackman, then it could be assumed that it was just that movie's version of the character and not the same version that is present in the Fox franchise, ultimately not being a thread between the two franchises and not expanding the world of Raimi's Spider-Man at the same level as an actual cameo from Jackman's Wolverine from the actual Fox franchise would have done. Communication between the studio creative teams and the audience on this issue is also important in illustrating these connections and overall integrity of the continuity. Positively knowing that these are the characters from these continuities helps strengthen the cameos and universes. Cameos should be used as a tool in the development of these comic book based cinematic universes, used in moderation and not overly relied on. It shouldn't be used entirely for the purpose of audience intrigue or to quickly develop a universe. That can result in cheap, hollow cameos that don't live up to the potential of crossing over these projects or characters. Cameos offer an interesting opportunity for characters to have satisfying interactions with one another. The creative teams utilize their access to the world of various characters, presenting new dynamics between them. This allows for them to simply exist and freely interact with one another in this inclusive world. These cameos should be taken seriously unless in an unserious situation. They should have purpose and relevance in the narrative, not distracting from it. They should be approached maturely. You are, after all, continuing the character's journey. You're showing the audience where this character is at this specific moment in time, perhaps either before or after a major character defining event. This could have them be in an evolved state as a character compared to their previous appearances. The writing doesn't have to be overly elaborate, but it should be appropriate for the character and the movie they're appearing in. Cameos are an easily used tool that can become complicated due to the intricacies of the film industries and all of the different obstacles and voices within the creative process. To be fair, it can also become complicated for characters to cross over in the comics for the same reasons. An important thing is for these creative teams to be allowed healthy creative freedom in using this tool in any measure that they believe would be best for their project and for the universe they're creating in. Cameos can do the very simple thing of having a moment dedicated to reminding the audience that these stories and characters all take place in a world that is alive and thriving, with limitless potential and imagination.